Hey guys, welcome to Pistons Talk Podcast post-game show. Hope you guys are having a great weekend. Man, what a game. We got a lot to get into. We're going to go over these quarter notes, and then after we're done with that, we'll get into questions, comments, like we usually do on these post-game podcasts. If you guys are watching live right now, do me a favor, hit that like button. It does help the algorithm on YouTube to push out our content. If you guys don't mind, if you're listening on the audio side, make sure to give us a 5-star review, wherever you guys get your podcast, Spotify, Apple, we're everywhere. But let's get into tonight's game against the Minnesota Timberwolves. What I really liked out of tonight is Asar Thompson starting. I thought when Jaden Ivey went out, Asar Thompson starting made so much sense just for his defensive impact. And you saw it tonight. They slid Tim Hardaway Jr. to his natural position at shooting guard. Asar was the starting small forward, and just the energy, the defense, 5 steals, you guys. Like, this guy reminds me so much. Like, I call him a mini Dennis Rodman, just the way he's just so active, athletic. I'm so happy that Asar Thompson is healthy, and you're starting to see it. He's off that minute restriction, and he was just really bothering the Minnesota Timberwolves throughout the night. Obviously, we got to talk about Anthony Edwards. He was just going crazy tonight. He set actually a record, Little Caesar Arena record for the most points scored in that arena. I think he had 53 tonight, if I do remember correctly. But he really did keep the Timberwolves in this game for a majority of maybe like 3.5 quarters or so. But, you know, the Pistons just owned the first. You had Cade coming out with 11 points. Asar had 6 points, and they shot 60% from the field in the first quarter. And this looked like the team that was playing against the Hornets in the second half. Like, they still had that energy. They still had that level of focus, and they win the first quarter 33-28. Going into the second quarter, Cade just continued to stay aggressive. Cade was just having one of those nights where Minnesota didn't really double him too much. And when you let Cade Cunningham just play 1v1, he's going to win most matchups on most nights. And he stayed aggressive. When he wasn't looking for a shot, he was looking to set up his teammates. And I just really like this game for Cade, and I think this will go a long way with the all-star votes for him, because I think Cade Cunningham is an all-star. You know, dropping 40 points in tonight's game was really, really impressive. Malik Beasley finally kind of had a good game. And when I say finally, it was like 2 games of Malik Beasley where like he was kind of like cold, but you know, he just came in the second quarter, was really hitting his 3-point shots. When the 3-point shot wasn't there, he was, you know, putting the ball on the floor, and he has those like nice little like right hand floaters. And he was making everything tonight. I thought he was really, really huge in tonight's victory. He stepped up, obviously. Had 2 bad games, and I think that's the first time this season, and we're almost 40 games into the season, where he had like collectively 2 bad games. But it was good to see him knock some of that rust off. I thought the Pistons defense was really, really consistent in the first and in the second quarter. They really helped out. Anthony Edwards had 26 points at halftime. You know, Cade had 20, Malik Beasley had 17, and the Pistons have a 55-43 lead. Coming out of halftime, what I really liked from this squad was just the ball movement tonight. I thought it was really crisp. I didn't feel like there were possessions where we're just playing iso ball, because throughout the season we do that. We'll play iso ball. The ball doesn't move; it sticks. Didn't really feel like we had that tonight. You know, the ball was moving side to side. I really liked how they were just, you know, operating out of the pick and roll with Cade. And the defense consistently was just bothering the Timberwolves. The Timberwolves just did not play team ball at all. It was just all Anthony Edwards, and Julius Randle really did not get heated up until like the last like 13, 14 minutes into this game. But Pistons were up 24 at one point in this game, you guys. And what usually happens with this team is, you know, the turnovers start happening, and, you know, Timberwolves go on a little run to end the third quarter, a 14-4 run, but the Pistons still maintain their lead, 96-81 heading into the fourth quarter. You know, and Cade just did not he couldn't be stopped, in my opinion. He just was hitting 3-pointers, getting to the mid-range. And he had some really big buckets in the fourth quarter. Ron Holland as well. Ron Holland just brought so much energy off that bench, just driving into the lane, getting dunks, fighting for loose balls. Really like what I see out of this kid, man. Like, he's just such a good draft pick. And I know a lot of people, when we drafted him, a lot of people wanted like Dalton Connect, but I think you give Ron Holland a couple of years. He's going to be one of the better rookies out of this draft class. Like, if that shot starts to developing and he's playing defense, he's hustling, like, he's going to be a nightmare for opposing teams. But the Detroit Pistons end the week, you guys, 3-0. They beat the Timberwolves 119-105. And they're one game under 500 at 17 wins and 18 losses. They have a chance to get over 500 or to get to 500 because they do play the Blazers on Monday. And the schedule does kind of soften up for the Pistons. So they're going to be playing some teams that are rebuilding, tanking to say. But I really like where this team is at. I think since the West Coast trip, something clicked. Something happened, and I think it was the Jazz game. I think the Jazz game really woke them up, because when you lose to a rebuilding team like the Jazz, I know Cade said it a couple of weeks ago that it didn't really sit well with them, and they go on that West Coast trip 3-1. The only loss was to the Nuggets, and they finished this week 3-0. They're just playing really good ball. Not every win that they had this week, like the Hornets game, I thought was really, really sloppy. They could have lost that one, but they bounced back tonight on a back-to-back, and they were in control every minute tonight. All 48 minutes, they were in control. I never felt like the Timberwolves were going to come back and win this game. I just felt like the Pistons were the more dominant, hungry, aggressive team. But that's just kind of like my overall thoughts on this week. Really excited for this team. And I'm so happy for, Pistons fans, watching live on YouTube. Like, you guys deserve it. Like, you guys are in these chat rooms each and every night when we do them. You guys are such loyal, dedicated fans. I'm so happy for the fan base. I mean, we got some MVP chants for Cade Cunningham in the fourth quarter. Also got some Jared Goff chants, but I'm not even going to get into that discourse because it's just it's tiresome. But I'm going to take a little quick commercial break, you guys, and after that, we're going to wrap up this podcast, get into comments, questions, and overall thoughts, and we will be right back, you guys. Hold on. Okay, you guys, we're back after that quick commercial break. I want to get into comments and questions with you guys. First comment of the night goes to David Rose. Cade has arrived, All-Star. Make sure you guys are voting for Cade Cunningham to be an All-Star. The first wave of votes came out. Cade was ranked 6th. LaMelo Ball was ranked 1st. I think Cade deserves to be an All-Star this year. I really do. I mean, going head-to-head with Anthony Edwards, who's one of the best up-and-coming superstars in the NBA. Ant had 50, Cade had 40. I don't know what else to say. I mean, every star player that he's gone up against this season, it seems like he's really brought his A game. I mean, two number one picks going at each other, and the Pistons get the win tonight, and in a really impressive win at that. But I do agree with you, David. Cade is definitely an all-star this season. Got a question from Jay Hart. What do y'all think about adding CJ McCollum, another bucket, and helps with ball handling and closing? I don't think we're bothering the JD experiment and just going to allow him to grow. Thoughts? I feel like the Pelicans we've talked about quite a lot on this podcast, and even like before the season started because of Trajan Langton, where he came from, mostly Brandon Ingram stuff, right? I would say the Pelicans are probably listening to offers for everyone, probably except for Herb Jones. CJ's okay. I just don't know what the Pelicans would want, Jay Hart. I do agree getting another bucket getter and taking some stress off Cade Cunningham should definitely be a conversation with this front office and organization. I just don't know how committed they are this year to making a move like that. I don't know like where this organization's goals were coming into the season. Like obviously, we're one game under 500. We're competing in the Eastern Conference playoffs. We're a play-in tournament team as of right now. The Pistons keep losing games. They're going to lose a draft pick to Minnesota. I mean, they can have it. It looks like they need it personally. I don't really know what New Orleans would want. I do think the Pistons will be active at the trade deadline. I do think that they will try to help other teams out, facilitate trades because they have the most cap space in the NBA, and a lot of teams want to get out of that cap space hell that they're in, especially with the new CBA and the aprons. I think if they do add a player, I think it'll be similar to Trajan's first trade. If you guys remember, they traded Quentin Grimes for Tim Hardaway Jr. and got 3 second-round picks out of it. I think those are the type of moves that Trajan's looking for. And if they're available, he'll strike. But I don't really know if they're going to try to get a CJ McCollum or a player of his stature. I mean, CJ balled out. I saw that he had a 50 ball this week. So who knows where the Pelicans are at. I mean, they're just having a really, really awful season. And you kind of feel bad for them because, they have so much talent and they just can't stay healthy. But appreciate the question, JR, as always. Got a comment from Case Correct, one of the OGs. Cade is having his best game against top NBA talent. It's nice to see. It is. I know the discourse with Cade was really, really messy, especially during the losing streak in last season. Some people were saying Cade isn't that guy because he can't help the Pistons, win games. When I'm sorry, that roster last year was so piss poor. You had all-time terrible spacing. I mean, you had Killian Hayes as his backcourt mate that can only shoot with his right hand. Cade is showing you if you just put competent role players around him and some vets, he can lead a team to more wins. I mean, what happens when you put another all-star next to him? What happens when you put even more competent pieces around him? Pistons are, flirting with 500 basketball. Could they go, a few games over 500 basketball if you add more talented pieces around him? I think any doubts in discourse with Cade, the more we win, those thoughts and opinions are just going to go out the door. They're just playing really good ball right now, you guys. I mean, they've won 8 out of the last 11 games ever since that West Coast trip. They've really just turned it on. They're really playing team basketball. And I think a lot of Pistons fans just appreciate the way that they're playing. It's no hero ball. Everyone gets theirs. Everyone contributes at the end of the day. And I mean, we had 3 wins without Simone Fontecchio, who's, in the rotation. Obviously, he's dealing with some personal issues, personal reasons why he's been out. But I mean, the fact that you won 3 games this week without one of your, better bench pieces, I think is really impressive. And it just kind of shows you the type of coach JB Bickerstaff is and his coaching staff and the Pistons organization. They've done such a good job of just getting these guys in positions to, compete in games, but now they're learning how to win. Now they're learning out how to, play with a lead tonight, which I thought was really crucial. And they're gaining confidence each and every game, and it's so cool to see as being a Piston fan. And I'm sure you guys feel the same way. Got a comment from Brian. Do you think we should go after Cam Johnson and gear up for a playoff run? Appreciate the question, Brian. I was all in on Cam Johnson 2 off seasons ago. I thought that was going to be a guy that the Pistons they were going to go after, especially because we hired Monty and there was some kind of relationship there in Phoenix. And obviously the Pistons decided that free agency class wasn't the time to spend money, which was really puzzling to me. I don't understand why. But to answer your question, I'm going to say no. And it's not because Cam Johnson isn't a good player. It's what Brooklyn's asking for. They're asking for 2 first-round picks right now for Cam Johnson. Don't know if they'll get 2 first-round picks. But the Pistons' dilemma is they don't have first-round picks that they can trade that the Brooklyn Nets would want. Like, they can trade first-round picks a couple years out. Like, they can trade 2028, but, like, that's 3 years away. I thought Brooklyn wants that. The draft pick that the Timberwolves own, that's top 13 protected. You can't trade it until draft night. I like Cam Johnson as kind of an under-the-radar guy, but read today that he's dealing with some injuries and he wouldn't be readily available if you were to trade for him right now. Don't really know what the timetable is for a Cameron Johnson, but he's been a guy that I've been incredibly high on since the UNC days, North Carolina days. He's just one of those guys that I felt like, during his draft class would have fit like a glove with the Detroit Pistons, but the Suns just decided to just draft him like really, really early. And it was former Piston GM Jeff Bauer who actually drafted him, the guy that drafted Donovan Mitchell, or drafted Luke Kennard over Donovan Mitchell. So yeah, there's that little tidbit for you guys because he went to Phoenix after the Pistons fired him. Got a question from Ryan, another OG of just the Pistons talk family and community. He says, Cade was phenomenal. That being said, I think getting a legit backup point guard to relieve him is needed before he ends up hurting himself from overusage. Really good insight by you, Ryan. And I love that you brought this up because we've talked about this multiple times on every post-game podcast. Are the Pistons going to try to, address the backup point guard position? Or are they going to get another ball handler, bucket getter? Obviously, Marcus Sasser is filled into that role right now of being being a backup point guard. He's not a legitimate backup point guard. He's more of a shooting guard trying to play point guard. But I do agree with you. I think there are some options in the trading market over the next month or so, you guys. I don't think Trajan Langdon and the Pistons front office, I don't think when you look at the available players right now, like Dennis Smith Jr. is probably the best player available that they could sign. Marco Fultz is out. I know a lot of people have mentioned him, but like Dennis Smith Jr., no shot at him, but like I don't really think that would be too much of an upgrade for this team. He's a good defender, but I think if the Pistons really, really wanted to, get a legitimate backup point guard, they would look to the trade market. And, we've mentioned guys like, Malcolm Brogdon, like Mike Conley tonight for the T-Wolves. Mike Conley could be an under the radar guy to be, a backup point guard. But, guys like Conley, I know you guys have also mentioned John Wall, who isn't in the NBA, but he's still trying to, make it back into the NBA. I think there are definitely some options there. And I kind of went off course, as I said, John Wall, when we're talking about guys that you can trade for. But I think if they do try to get a backup point guard, it'll probably be in the trading market, if I did have to guess. It's just going to be really interesting to see what this front office and this organization does, with just adding more talent. It really is. I do want to get to some more, comments and questions with you guys. I appreciate all 139 of you in the chat right now. Hope you guys are having a great weekend. Got a comment from Ryan P. Providing we don't really take our foot off the gas the rest of the way, we're heading for a play-in at the minimum and possibly playoff pest, making it tough for better teams but not advancing. I mean, like if you look at the teams outside of the top three, like the Pacers, they have completely struggled. I think the Pistons can, take the Pacers seeding. We've already beat the Hawks. We've beat the Heat. The Heat are in absolute turmoil with the Jimmy Butler drama. And then we got Ashton the trainer in here. Like, who's to say you can't get the 6th seed? Who's to say the Pistons can't compete for the 6th seed? And you have the trading deadline to add more talent. Who's to say you can't get more veterans on this team, Ryan? I do agree with you. I think at the minimum, this is a play-in team. If you want to be really optimistic, really positive, maybe this could be a team that really fights for that 6th seed. And we do have Ashton in here. I do want to put his comment on the screen. Shout out, and we got to stop the Jared Goff chants, as I did see him tweet about that. Vote for Cade hashtag. Yeah, if you're not voting for Cade Cunningham right now, you guys, I really don't know what you're doing. He deserves to be an all-star in my personal opinion. But I do want to get to Eric, who did make a $10 super chat. Shout out to Eric, man. I appreciate you, my guy. He's like, if I'm the Pistons, I'm not looking to make no trades this year. I'm going to let these young players develop, and I'm going to see what I have in the off season, and I might look at it, but not this season. Eric, appreciate your comment, man, and I love the optimism. If you do want to take that route, if you are the Pistons and you feel like, I don't need to, fill up my roster, I'll just keep my available roster spot open. I won't use my cap space. Then you do it. But I do feel that Trajan will fill that roster spot out. He's looking to get more draft picks stocked up in the Pistons' cupboard, if you will. Now, whether you get another veteran, maybe a veteran big to mentor, guys like Jalen Duren and Isaiah Stewart, maybe you get a veteran point guard. To take some stress off Cade. I think there are a lot of options the Pistons can make, and especially with this Jimmy Butler stuff, like the Pistons could be a third team that tries to get into those trades. Same with Brandon Ingram and Zach LaVine. When you have the most cap space in the NBA, you're the only team in the NBA right now that does have cap space. You're going to be on the phone with a lot of teams, just going with your organization and your front office to, basically see what they could possibly do of adding more talent, adding more draft picks at the end of the day. But I do think they will fill that last roster spot. They'll probably use the rest of their cap space and try to get draft capital and try to make this team better because, you're one game under 500 right now. You're playing really, really, really good basketball. And like the future is like really bright for this team. Like I'm so happy that this team is just playing competitive basketball. They're learning how to win at the end of the day. We have a comment from Elite Human Network. Speaking of Jay Butler trade situation, do you see the Pistons getting into the mix of the trade? Yeah, I do. Absolutely. I made a joke actually with my guy Sean Murphy because we're playing the Timberwolves and we're going to be doing a podcast tomorrow with Sean on Sunday at around like 7 o'clock, you guys, if you guys want to catch that tomorrow. But so wouldn't it be funny if the Heat traded Jimmy Butler back to Minnesota? Because that's where Jimmy Butler basically requested the trade in the first place, playing with the second team bench players against the starters. But I think that the Heat will trade Jimmy Butler, and I think the Pistons will be in the mix. Maybe they can get some rotational players, maybe some draft capital for taking on a bloated contract. But I would expect the Pistons to be very active at the trade deadline. I want to get to a couple more questions and comments with you guys. Appreciate all of you guys in here. I have a comment from Red Baron. Shout out to him. Butler, Ingram, LaVine are all in moves for struggling contenders who have a small window to win a championship. I agree. I agree. Like, Zach LaVine, like, if you take the contract out of it and just the basketball player, good player, can score at all three levels. We've seen it as Pistons fans. Like, we held him to like 10 points, and then he goes for like 20 in the fourth quarter, and the Bulls beat us. Zach LaVine's a very good player. Ingram has had his injury history and he hasn't really been readily available, but he's still pretty young. So if you are a team that's looking to trade for him, maybe Utah tries to trade for him again. I don't know. That's an option for them. But the one thing I will say about Jimmy Butler, come playoff time, there's no debating Jimmy Butler is one of the best players in basketball. I mean, he's taken the Miami Heat to 2 NBA Finals trips. Obviously, they lost both times, but Jimmy Butler in the playoff is just another player. I don't understand it. It's the weirdest thing to me watching playoff basketball. He just turns it up another notch and just turns into like a superstar. But I do agree with people in the chat. He's 35. He wants a $50 million contract. He wants to get paid one more time before he probably does retire from the NBA. I don't really think timeline to really match with Jimmy, but honestly, we got a Minnesota Timberwolf fan in here talking about Jimmy. We don't want him here unless we pay him bench money. Yeah, I doubt it. I don't think you would probably want Jimmy Butler for a second time, but Jimmy's looking to get paid. Like I could see Golden State going all in one more time. I could see the contending teams like going all in for Jimmy, but I don't really think fit wise for Detroit it makes a whole lot of sense. But good to see we have some Timberwolves fans in here. Hope it gets better for you guys because you have so much talent. But Julius Randle, his body language, man. Like if I was a T-Wolves fan, like I'd be like really sick to my stomach. Like there was no reason for you guys to trade Cat. Like I don't understand it. I really don't. I really don't. Get to probably one more comment and question, and then we're gonna wrap this up, and we'll probably see you guys tomorrow on the podcast with Sean Murphy. And I'm gonna let's see who's going to get the last comment of this show. I am going to give C the last comment of the show because I've actually never seen C in this live stream on these podcasts. So shout out to him, man. Do we get a legit backup 4? I feel like it's a glaring hole in the lineup, but I am an idiot. You're not an idiot. I think a lot of people have mentioned a backup 4. When Tobias has had his games this year where he struggled, Simone Fontecchio obviously hasn't been the consistent backup 4 that we thought going into the season. We thought he was going to be one of those guys to give us a good 9, 12 points off the bench, but he had surgery on his foot and didn't have a full off season to really get ready. I think a backup 4 could be a possibility, but I do wonder what the plans are for Bobby Klitman, right? Bobby Klitman is playing in the G League right now. The Pistons drafted him in the second round and immediately extended him to a 4-year contract. But I don't know what the plans for Bobby are. I don't know if it's just get reps in the G League, and if we have some injuries, you might get clocked that way. I'd like to think that Bobby's in the long-term plans, and I kind of project him as a backup 4. I know someone had said always felt like Tech was a small forward. Jay Hart, I do agree with you. I think that Tech's natural position is small forward, but we've been playing him at backup power forward. I mean, you've even seen Asar Thompson play some backup power forward at times this season. But I'm glad that you did mention this in the chat. See, I think it's a good topic and a good discussion among Pistons fans right now. But I don't think it's out of the question. I think Trajan in the front office would definitely look to upgrade this roster if they can, and if they can get a legitimate, backup power forward at the deadline, I think that's definitely something that they will explore and try to look at. But I'm going to wrap up this show, you guys. I appreciate all 153 of you guys in here. On the way out, if you could just, hit that like button, does really help out the YouTube channel. I'd really appreciate it. But we will see you guys tomorrow. It's 7:15. We're doing another podcast for you guys. Kind of just talking about the Detroit Pistons news of the week, Jaden Ivey, all that stuff. If you guys want to, hang out with me and Sean tomorrow. We'd appreciate it. But hope you guys have a great weekend, and go Lions, man. Let's just have a Minnesota sweep in Detroit. See you guys tomorrow. Peace.